Hey everybody, welcome to AA Sports. I'm Andres, and in this sports episode, we are again talking about football. And today, we are talking about the latest news from the Mexican Football Federation and the national team. They've officially announced new friendly matches for this year, and with the CONCACAF Nations League Final Four beginning this Thursday, the roster for those matches has officially been announced. Lots of news, and I will talk about it all. On Thursday, March 21st and Monday, March 25th, the U20 men's team for Mexico will play against the U20 teams of Honduras and Costa Rica. Both of these will be preparation matches for the CONCACAF U20 Championship this summer, which will be a qualifying tournament for the 2025 U20 World Cup. And head coach Eduardo Arce has called up two interesting names to the roster that eyes will definitely be on. It'll be interesting to see how they play and if the second player will play for Mexico in the future. The first of these two is Alex Alcala. He is an attacking midfielder who can contribute on offense almost like a winger. He recently signed with Manchester City's development squad and has been getting minutes so far as he looks to develop and hopefully establish himself in Europe in the future. The second is Matheus Reis. He is still just 16 years old, and he is playing for Brazilian club Fluminense, and his phenomenal talent has led him to now being part of the main roster for the club as a substitute option. And the club has put out a $53 million release clause in his contract. I mean, it's really incredible. And he is on the roster for these two games for Mexico. For Reis, he is currently undecided for which country he wants to represent. He was raised and grew up playing football mostly in Brazil and their youth academies. However, he was born in Mexico City, while his father, Elias Reis, was playing for Pumas Morelos, a team that was affiliated with Pumas UNAM, but is now defunct. This makes Matheus Reis eligible to play for both countries. He is yet to be capped by either team, but has made 9 appearances for Brazil's U17 team, and these will be his first matches with Mexico on the U20 team. So there's still time for him to make the FIFA one-time switch if he wishes to and represent Mexico. So good for Matheus Reis, and hopefully Mexico calls him up and helps, develop him, as we would love to have him representing El Tricolor de Mexico. Moving up the youth rankings, Mexico's U23 team will also have 2 friendly matches as well to develop the youth talent that is within that 20 to 23-year-old age window. Both matches will be played against Argentina's U23 team, so it will be interesting to see how they play as well with the roster the head coach Ricardo Cardena has called up for that team. Good luck to both youth teams this week, and hopefully Matheus Reis, of course, feels welcomed and gets a place in Mexico's national teams in the future. Now moving on to the men's senior team news. So we got the main national team and news there, starting with some schedule announcements regarding games the national team will play this year. So it was announced in December of 2023 that Mexico would begin to play more games of higher skill level. And with that, they also announced that they would play 2 games against Brazil and Uruguay in early June as preparation matches for the Copa America, which they have qualified for and will be playing in. The venues have officially been announced for those games, both in the U.S., since, of course, the Copa America will be held in the U.S. this summer. They will play Uruguay in Denver, Colorado at Empower Mile High Field on June 5th, and then June 8th versus Brazil in Texas at Kyle Field, a large stadium with a capacity of 102,000 people, and both teams will hope that their fans will show out in a possible record attendance. Both high-level games definitely will be cool to watch, and it'll be great for Mexico to grow and develop. The Mexican Football Federation has also confirmed an additional preparation friendly before these 2 games on May 31st against Bolivia, and they will play in Soldier Field in Chicago. So all in all, good matches for the senior national team. And it's good to be playing more against CONMEBOL teams and teams from stronger football confederations, as that will only raise their skill level to be able to compete with those teams. Then for the September FIFA international dates, we talked about how Mexico was lining up games against Canada and New Zealand. This week, the Mexican Federation has officially confirmed those two games on the schedule. On September 7th, Mexico will play against New Zealand and play Canada on September 10th in the Rose Bowl and AT&T Stadium, respectively. While not the most elite competition in the world like Argentina or Spain, they are still playing against World Cup teams in September, which is good for Mexico. Again, they're finally moving away from the partidos moleros against, weaker teams. I still wish more of these friendlies would be in Mexico, in front of a true home crowd in Mexico. I know the official home stadium is Estadio Azteca, and it will be undergoing renovations, so they probably won't play there within the next couple of years until the World Cup. But to play in, say, Estadio Akron in Guadalajara, or Estadio BBVA in Monterrey, or in Puebla, with the pressure of the fans in Mexico, I think would be good for the team and the fans. Nevertheless, I'm still happy. I think all Mexican fans are happy that they are playing stronger competition and will definitely look forward to these games. Let me know in the comments what you think about the games planned for the national team. What is your reaction to the schedule, and where you think they should hold a game or more games at in the future, in a U.S. stadium or in a Mexico stadium, and which one? Put your thoughts about that in the comments below. Lastly, we got moving on to the international break this week. And along with the Copa America qualifying playoffs here in the CONCACAF, all eyes will be on the Final Four tournament of the CONCACAF Nations League. The Final Four games being held in Dallas at AT&T Stadium. Mexico will play Panama in the semifinals, and the winner will play in the final, while the loser plays in the third place match. And the Mexico national team has announced the roster for the finals. 23 players on the final roster, and it's definitely an interesting roster with some surprising call-ups that will definitely have fans talking. For the goalkeepers, head coach Jaime Lozano has called up 3 goalkeepers for the finals: Guillermo Ochoa, Luis Angel Malagon, and Julio Gonzalez. I think these are good call-ups to the roster, and Julio Gonzalez adds depth in the goalkeeper position as well. Now, many I know don't like Ochoa being called up, mainly because of age. And then on top of that, they also see the statistics of how he has surpassed 1,000 goals conceded in professional club level. And how, along with that, how Salernitana, the team he currently plays for in the Serie A in Italy, is right now losing a lot of games and will likely be relegated at the end of the season. Despite that, I still think Ochoa is one of the best we have, and if he isn't a starter, then he will be the secondary goalkeeper to Malagon, and if not the secondary, then he will be the starter. I think the statistic sheet that you see when you Google search Salernitana, and you see the first thing that pops up, and their results, these 4-1, 2-0 losses. I feel like they don't do Guillermo Ochoa justice, because we forget that at the same time, Memo, he has had some of the most saves this year in Serie A, with 70 saves so far, while working with one of the worst ranked defenses in Serie A. Ochoa has also found a way to really play well for the national team, despite these struggles at the club level. So in terms of experience and leadership, it's still good to call Memo Ochoa up, at least for this World Cup cycle, which will likely be his last, as Malagon prepares to take over the starting role. For its defensive players, 8 were called up for the finals: Jesus Gallardo, Julian Araujo, Gerardo Arteaga, Cesar Montes, Johan Vasquez, Jorge Sanchez, Eric Aguirre from Monterrey, and Jesus Orozco from Chivas. Lozano called up 8 wingers and midfielders, starting with winger Uriel Antuna. He was called up along with Roberto Piojo Alvarado from Chivas, and Luis Romo as well was also called up. Surprisingly, Charlie Rodriguez is back in the roster after not being called up the last few international breaks for Mexico. Then you have Orbelín Pineda, Luis Chavez, Eric Sanchez, and Edson Alvarez. Lastly, we got the offensive forwards and the main winger, and the players called up here are Chucky Lozano, Santiago Jimenez, Julian Quiñones, and Henry Martin. So I already analyzed the goalkeeper portion of the roster, so let's talk about the rest of the roster, starting with the defense. Gallardo, Julian Araujo, Arteaga, Montes, Vasquez, Jorge Sanchez, Eric Aguirre from Club Monterrey, and Jesus Orozco from Chivas. In terms of left back, we have both Jesus Gallardo and Gerardo Arteaga. With age becoming a factor and the fact that it's time for Mexico to be stronger in the wingback positions, many will not like that Gallardo was called up again. I am honestly okay with it, as he would be an experienced player to have on the roster. But however, I would like to see Gerardo Arteaga start, and for the national team to develop him as the starter for the future. He doesn't play often, and it's time for Arteaga to get some minutes on the field, as I do believe he can contribute on both sides of the ball, defensively and pushing up offensively, more than Gallardo. I would also like to see Omar Campos in the future as well, but the roster for this position looks good so far, as both Gallardo and Arteaga are in form with Monterrey right now. On the other side, for right back, we have Julian Araujo, Jorge Sanchez, and Eric Aguirre. Aguirre is a bit of a surprise call-up, given he hasn't played much this year. I think he will more than likely be a substitute player just to add depth to the right back position. Jorge Sanchez is once again called up, and many fans are arguing he should not be called up, given he has really not played well for Mexico over the last couple of years and was atrocious during the quarterfinals of the Nations League. And I agree with this. Jorge Sanchez has not played well for Mexico this last year plus, and while he has shown decent form recently while on loan with Porto in the Primeira Liga in Portugal, 2 assists in their last 4 games, he has not been very convincing or good enough to really be part of the national team right now. He's been more of a liability than a key asset for Mexico and the national team. I would rather see Kevin Alvarez get called up, as he has been performing better in my opinion, and am surprised he wasn't called up. Julian Araujo, on the other hand, that is not even a debate. He's been playing really well for Las Palmas in La Liga. He is the best right back we have right now, and he should be the starter for these 2 games. I will be shocked and disappointed if he is not. As for center backs, Montes and Vasquez are the best 2 we have and are a really good duo. They will be the starters. In terms of substitutes, Israel Reyes was not called up, as he unfortunately sustained an injury in the CONCACAF Champions for America in the second leg. So Chivas' Jesus Orozco has been called up as a substitute center back. I would have rather seen Victor Guzman from Monterrey and give him playing time to develop. I do disagree with the idea of calling up Orozco, as nobody on Chivas has been in form or playing well recently. I'll say the same thing for Piojo Alvarado, a winger and attacking midfielder who plays for Chivas, who was called up for the midfield portion of the roster. again, nobody on Chivas has been playing well, and I don't trust them in terms of contributing in the finals. And moving on to the midfield and second winger portion of this roster, this is where it feels very hit and miss, and I feel there are concerns with the roster. So the players called up here were Antuna, Alvarado, Luis Chavez, Orbelin Pineda, Charlie, Eric Sanchez, Luis Romo, and Edson Alvarez. Alvarez, Orbelin, Chavez, and Sanchez are all in good form right now, and Edson is one of the best players Mexico has right now. So I agree with that part of the roster. But you look at Alvarado, Charlie, and Luis Romo, and that's the part of the roster where you do wonder why. Charlie, these last few international breaks, was not called up, and frankly believed to be a player of the past, and he should be. He is very overrated and has contributed very little for Cruz Azul this Clausura season, and Luis Romo has contributed even less, and Luis Romo has been non-existent in his performances the last 6 games for the national team. Why have them on the roster instead and not call up, Jordi Cortizo and Marcel Ruiz? Cortizo has been great in his 3 games with the national team and contributing more for his club team than Romo and Charlie. And we keep talking about Marcel Ruiz and how there was news that he was a new call-up to the roster, young blood for Mexico, set to make a debut, yet he hasn't played. He's yet to make his debut. Give him a chance. With Charlie and Romo, we already know exactly what we will get and who they are as players, and neither of them should be on the national team. And for Piojo Alvarado, who is, the second winger, why are we calling up a winger who, like his team, is not in form right now? I mean, just to have a token Chivas player or something? If you're going to call up another winger, why not bring in Osiel Herrera? Osiel was called up in preliminary fashion for the senior team this week for the Nations League finals, but has been left off the senior team roster and called up to the U23 team. I am very surprised by this decision to leave Osiel Herrera off the senior roster and instead have him play U23 football this week, given how well he has been playing. He has been very productive offensively for Tigres, 3 goals and 2 assists this Clausura, and he's earned his starting spot after starting this Clausura as a substitute, and is a young talent that is looking promising right now. I feel leaving him to play for the U23 team is a bad decision, as we are letting his talent be used in 2 U23 friendly games that aren't as important as the Nations League. I think this is a bad move, as we are not developing young talent with the senior team and giving them time to develop more at that level, and develop more in general than they would on the youth teams, which has been a problem for years for Mexico. And given that players like Piojo were called up instead of Osiel Herrera, this decision to leave him off the senior roster, for this week, it just feels worse. This midfield and winger roster is half good and half bad and worrying, and I really do hope, so that we are able to win this Nations League title, I hope the worrying end of it doesn't hurt the team. Then you got the primary winger and forwards: Lozano, Santi Jimenez, Quiñones, and Henry Martin. Raúl Jimenez, who is normally a prominent player in the roster, who I believe still has a place in this team, and has been showing better form this year with Fulham in the Premier League. He was not called up for the finals as he is recovering from an injury. So Henry is coming in to replace him on the offensive end of the roster. And honestly, this is one where I feel split about in terms of the offense as well. When Raul is healthy and in form, he and Santi are the two go-to forwards. And Henry is like a substitute player. He is like a third option. But for the second half of last season and all of this year, Henry Martin has not looked the same and has really, in my opinion, been in the shadow of Julian Quiñones, who has made more of an impact for America than Martin this year. The benefit of calling up Martin is that Quiñones and him they are teammates at Club America. They do have that teammate relationship with working there, and they work together well at the club level. But the negative is that Martin individually hasn't contributed as much as the others. While not as overrated as Charlie Rodriguez, in terms of contributing, he is still a little overrated in my opinion. With Quiñones being able to play both winger and forward positions, I feel it would have been better to move Quiñones up with Santi as a forward and bring in Osiel Herrera and Chino Huerta as the second winger, who has been great for Pumas. I'd put them in place of Henry and Piojo Alvarado. The offensive front roster doesn't look too bad outside of that, as all the players there have been in good form. Santi Jimenez has been great in the Eredivisie for Feyenoord. Chucky Lozano has been contributing and a key starter for PSV as they continue undefeated in the Eredivisie as well. And Julian Quiñones has made an instant impact in his first year with Club America. I really hope Santi Jimenez gets the starting position and playing time he deserves, as I do think he should be the starting striker moving forward. Well, that will be the roster for the Mexico national team this week in the CONCACAF Nations League Finals. Overall, I will give this roster a B grade. Some of the players on the roster are not surprising, as their spots are well-deserved and established, like Santi, Quiñones, Edson Alvarez, Johan Vázquez. And there are some like Alvarado, Charlie, Luis Romo, and Jorge Sanchez that do worry me, and hopefully they find a way to prove me and fans wrong. And of course, there are the players that I wish were on the roster, like Osiel Herrera. It will be interesting to hear head coach Jaime Lozano's reasoning as to why he called up these questionable players and what he saw in them that we don't. It also will be interesting to see the strategy approaches in these games, starting in the semifinals versus Panama, who are one of the most improved teams over the last year and have been historically competitive against Mexico. And of course, hopefully, Mexico get the 2 wins this week in the semifinals and in the finals to win their first Nations League title. Well, that's it for me, Andres from AA Sports. That's all for my opinions and reactions to the news and roster announcements for the Mexico national teams this week. Leave your opinions in the comments below. Leave a like and subscribe to help this passion project grow. Thanks for watching and listening, and I will see you in the next one.